Most people are told that farming losses come from bad weather, unpredictable markets, or just bad luck. But for a lot of farmers, that's not actually what's draining profits. What really costs money are the small daily decisions that seem harmless but add up to thousands of dollars lost every year. In this video, I'm sharing 7 costly mistakes that make farmers lose money raising animals, and most people don't even realize they're making them. These aren't complicated problems, they're quiet profit killers hiding in plain sight. If you're someone who wants a more sustainable, self-sufficient farm without constant financial stress, this channel is for you. I post calm, practical farming advice like this every week, and subscribing means you won't have to search for answers again. They'll just show up. I'm really glad you found your way here. Let's start. Mistake 1. Overfeeding without measuring. This one matters because it solves a quiet problem most farmers live with every day. Wasting money on feed because eyeballing portions just feels easier. Nobody talks about it, but this single habit can drain $2,000 to $5,000 yearly on small farms. And the worst part? It's completely invisible until you actually measure. The reason this works against you is simple. Animals don't need more food. They need the right amount at the right time. When you overfeed, 3 expensive things happen. First, you're literally throwing money into the feed trough. Second, overweight animals grow slower and have more health problems. And third, excess feed creates waste that costs time and money to manage. None of this respects how sustainable farming actually functions. Here's what makes this frustrating. Most farmers know they're probably overfeeding a little, but a little adds up fast. If you're feeding just 10% more than needed across 20 animals for a year, you've wasted hundreds of dollars. Scale that up, and it's thousands. The math is brutal when you actually run it. To start fixing this, all you need is 1 measuring scoop and a basic scale. That's it. You can get both for under $20 at any farm supply store. If you already have those, you're ready. What you're doing is simply weighing out portions for 1 week to establish your baseline. No optimizing, no overthinking. Just measure what you're currently feeding and compare it to recommended amounts for your specific animals. Most extension offices publish free feeding guides online. Use those. To keep it going, focus on just one thing. Check your measurements monthly and adjust seasonally when animals' needs change. That's enough. You don't need daily precision or complicated tracking. Monthly checks catch problems before they become expensive, and seasonal adjustments keep you aligned with growth stages and weather changes. Over time, this doesn't just improve your feed costs, it changes how your days feel. You stop second-guessing yourself at every feeding. You stop wondering if you're doing it right. Less friction, more follow-through, a little more calm, and your animals are actually healthier because they're getting consistent, appropriate nutrition instead of whatever seemed right that morning. A small thing that makes this easier is keeping a simple feed log. Nothing fancy, just a notebook where you write down what you're feeding and any observations about animal condition. This helps you spot patterns before they become expensive problems. You don't need it, but it smooths the process and gives you data to make better decisions. When you can look back 3 months and see exactly what worked, you're not guessing anymore. You're farming with intention, which is what separates profitable farms from struggling ones. Mistake 2. Ignoring preventive health care. This one matters because it solves a costly blind spot most farmers accept as normal, waiting until animals are sick instead of investing in prevention. The hidden cost here is brutal. Emergency vet bills run 5 to 10 times more expensive than routine preventive care. One preventable disease can wipe out an entire season's profit, and most farmers have experienced this at least once. The reason prevention actually works is simple. It respects how livestock health actually functions. Small, consistent health investments protect your entire farming investment. Animals are like any other valuable asset. Regular maintenance costs less than emergency repairs every single time. But somehow, when it comes to livestock, farmers convince themselves that prevention is optional until something goes wrong. Here's what makes this expensive. Diseases don't announce themselves early. By the time you notice symptoms, the problem is advanced, and treatment is complicated. You're not just paying for medication. You're paying for emergency calls, potential quarantines, lost productivity, and sometimes losing animals entirely. That's not just money. That's your family's income and security disappearing because basic prevention seemed like an unnecessary expense. The psychology here is backwards. Preventive care feels like spending money when nothing's wrong, so it's easy to skip. But that logic is exactly what keeps farms from becoming reliably profitable. Successful farms treat animal health like infrastructure. It's not optional. It's the foundation everything else depends on. To start fixing this, schedule seasonal vet checkups, spring and fall minimum. Most vets offer farm visit packages that are more affordable than individual emergency calls. If you already have a vet relationship, you're ready. What you're doing is simply establishing a routine where your animals get basic vaccinations and parasite control on a predictable schedule. No optimizing, no waiting for problems. To keep it going, focus on just one thing: monthly health observations. Spend 15 minutes per animal looking for changes in behavior, appetite, coat condition, or movement. That's enough to catch most problems early when they're still cheap to fix. You're not becoming a veterinarian, you're just paying attention consistently, which most farmers don't do until something's obviously wrong. Over time, this doesn't just reduce your vet bills, it changes how your farm operates. You stop living in reactive mode, constantly putting out fires. You start preventing fires instead. Less crisis management, more predictable outcomes, a little more breathing room in your budget, and your animals are actually productive instead of constantly fighting off preventable health problems that slow their growth and reduce their market value. A small thing that makes this easier is building a relationship with one reliable vet. When the same vet sees your animals regularly, they catch subtle changes you might miss. They know your farm's history and your animal's baseline health. This relationship is worth more than saving $50 by shopping around for the cheapest option every time. Consistency matters more than cost when it comes to healthcare, and experienced farmers know this. Mistake 3. Poor record keeping. This one matters because it solves an invisible profit leak that most farmers don't even realize exists, not tracking breeding, feed costs, or production rates. The reality is brutal but simple. You can't improve what you don't measure. And most small farmers are making expensive decisions based on guesses instead of data. The reason records actually matter is straightforward. Successful farms know which animals are profitable and which are costing money. Without data, every animal looks roughly the same, but they're not. Some animals convert feed efficiently and produce consistently. Others eat just as much but produce significantly less. If you can't tell the difference, you're keeping unprofitable animals and losing money every single day they're on your farm. Here's what makes this frustrating. Farmers track everything that feels urgent, like feeding schedules or immediate tasks, but they skip the tracking that actually builds long-term profitability. It's not that record keeping is hard, it's that the payoff isn't immediate, so it feels optional. But this is exactly backwards. The things that don't feel urgent are often what determine whether your farm makes money or barely survives. Think about breeding. Without records, you don't know which animals consistently produce healthy offspring or which bloodlines perform best in your conditions. You're essentially breeding randomly and hoping for good results. That's expensive gambling, not sustainable farming. The same applies to feed costs. If you don't know what each animal actually costs to raise, you can't price your products accurately or make smart decisions about scaling. To start fixing this, get one simple notebook or use your phone's Notes app. Nothing complicated. If you can write 3 things down, you're ready. What you're doing is tracking feed costs, breeding dates, and production output. That's it. Not complicated spreadsheets, not fancy software, just basic information that tells you what's actually happening on your farm. No optimizing, no overthinking. To keep it going, focus on just one thing, a 5-minute weekly update. Every Sunday or whatever day works for you, write down what happened that week. New births, feed purchases, sales, health issues. That's enough. 5 minutes of consistent tracking gives you a year's worth of data that transforms how you make decisions. You're not becoming an accountant. You're just creating a basic record of reality instead of relying on memory and guesses. Over time, this doesn't just help you identify profitable animals. It changes your entire decision-making process. You stop guessing about whether to cull an animal or which feed supplier actually saves you money. You have data. less uncertainty, more confidence, a little more control over your farm's financial future. And when tax time comes, you're not scrambling to reconstruct the entire year from memory and receipts. A small thing that makes this easier is using free farm apps like farm logs. They're designed specifically for this and make tracking almost effortless. But honestly, pen and paper works fine too. The tool doesn't matter. The consistency does. Pick whatever system you'll actually use every week, because a simple system you follow beats a perfect system you abandon after 2 months. Mistake 4. Wrong housing or shelter setup. This one matters because it solves a structural problem that quietly drains profits every single day. Housing that creates stress, disease, or wasted feed. Poor shelter doesn't just cost you once, it costs you continuously through slower growth, higher mortality rates, constant repairs, and elevated vet bills. And most farmers don't realize their housing is the problem because the effects are gradual. The reason proper housing actually works is simple. Animals in comfortable, appropriate shelter grow faster and stay healthier. This isn't complicated science. When animals are stressed by poor ventilation, overcrowding, or exposure to elements, their bodies spend energy managing stress instead of growing. You're paying for feed that goes toward survival instead of production. That's expensive and completely preventable. Here's what makes this costly. Bad housing multiplies other problems. Poor ventilation means respiratory issues that require vet care. Bad drainage means parasites and hoof problems. Insufficient space means fighting and injuries. Each of these creates separate expenses, but they all trace back to one source: housing that doesn't meet basic animal needs. Fix the housing, and you prevent dozens of downstream problems that eat your profits. The psychology here is tricky because housing feels like a big investment, so farmers often make do with whatever they have. But making do means accepting lower production and higher costs permanently. The right housing setup pays for itself through better production and lower vet bills within 1 to 2 years. After that, it's pure profit compared to limping along with inadequate shelter. To start fixing this, assess 3 things: ventilation, drainage, and space per animal. Basic standards are available free online from university extension offices. If you can identify your biggest housing weakness, you're ready. What you're doing is simply fixing one critical issue per season. Don't try everything at once. Pick the problem that's causing the most obvious stress or health issues and address that first. No optimizing, no perfectionism. To keep it going, focus on just one thing: seasonal inspection and minor repairs. Walk through your housing at the start of each season and fix small problems before they become expensive replacements. That's enough. A broken board fixed in spring prevents a collapsed wall in winter. Cleaned gutters prevent drainage problems that cause hoof rot. Small, consistent maintenance protects your infrastructure investment and keeps animals comfortable year-round. Over time, this doesn't just create healthier, more productive animals. It changes your daily workload. Good housing reduces labor because animals aren't constantly dealing with preventable problems. You spend less time treating injuries or illnesses and more time on productive work that actually moves your farm forward. Less crisis management, more sustainable operations, a little more peace of mind knowing your animals have what they need. A small thing that makes this easier is working with natural ventilation instead of fighting your climate. Expensive fans and heating systems often create more problems than they solve. Good design that uses prevailing winds, proper orientation, and adequate openings usually handles ventilation better and costs nothing to operate. You don't need high-tech solutions. You need housing that respects how air and water naturally move in your specific location. If this is saving you money already, give it a like. It tells YouTube to share this with other farmers who need it. And I'm curious, which mistake surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. I actually read them and often reply with additional thoughts. This conversation helps everyone learn, and your experience might solve someone else's problem. Also, we're halfway through, and the next 3 mistakes are just as important. The bonus tip at the end might be the most valuable piece of all, so stick around.
Mistake 5. Buying cheap or wrong quality feed. This one matters because it solves a false economy that costs farmers hundreds to thousands of dollars. saving $50 on cheap feed that costs you $500 in lost growth. The truth is simple but often ignored. Feed quality directly determines animal health, growth rates, and your ultimate profitability. Cheap feed is expensive when you understand what it actually costs. The reason quality matters is straightforward. Cheap feed usually means nutritional deficiencies or poor quality ingredients that animals can't digest efficiently. This creates a chain reaction of problems. Stunted growth means animals take longer to reach market weight, which means more months of feeding and care. Health problems from poor nutrition mean vet bills. Slower growth means you're tying up resources and space that could be producing income. Every part of this is expensive. Here's what makes this frustrating. The price difference between cheap feed and quality feed seems significant when you're looking at individual bags. But when you calculate the actual cost per pound of gain, quality feed almost always wins. Animals on proper nutrition grow faster, stay healthier, and reach market weight weeks or even months sooner. That time difference alone usually pays for the better feed, and you get healthier animals as a bonus. The psychology here is tricky because cheap feed feels like smart budgeting. You're spending less right now, which feels responsible, but you're actually spending more over time because you're feeding animals longer and dealing with more health issues. This is exactly the kind of short-term thinking that keeps farms from becoming reliably profitable. Successful farmers think in terms of return on investment, not just upfront cost. Think about this practically. If cheap feed costs $15 per bag and quality feed costs $20 per bag, that $5 difference feels significant. But if the quality feed helps animals reach market weight 2 weeks faster, you've saved 2 weeks of feeding costs, labor, and facility space. The math favors quality almost every time, but you have to look beyond the price tag to see it. To start fixing this, research species-specific nutritional requirements. This is one-time learning that changes everything. Extension offices and universities publish free guides that tell you exactly what nutrients different animals need at different life stages. If you understand what good nutrition actually looks like, you're ready. What you're doing is comparing feed by nutritional value and digestibility, not just price per bag. Look at protein percentages, energy content, and ingredient quality. No optimizing, no overthinking, just informed comparison. To keep it going, focus on just one thing. Stick with reliable suppliers who provide consistent quality. Feed consistency matters more than constantly bargain hunting. When animals get the same quality nutrition week after week, they grow predictably. When feed quality varies because you're chasing the cheapest option, growth becomes unpredictable and you're constantly adjusting. That inconsistency is expensive in ways that don't show up on receipts. Over time, this doesn't just improve growth rates. It changes your entire farm's productivity and your peace of mind. Animals grow on schedule. Production becomes predictable. You can actually plan instead of constantly reacting to problems. Less waste, more efficiency, a little more confidence in your farm's financial sustainability, and your animals are healthier, which reduces stress for both you and them. A small thing that makes this easier is buying from local feed mills when possible. Feed is fresher, you get better support and advice, and you're often getting better value because you're not paying for national brand marketing. Local mills also understand regional conditions and can recommend formulations that work specifically for your climate and your farm's goals. Mistake 6. Not planning for breeding cycles. This one matters because it solves a timing trap that creates chaos and lost money. Random breeding that results in uneven workload, poor market timing, and unpredictable cash flow. Strategic breeding isn't complicated, but the difference between random and planned breeding can mean thousands of dollars in profit annually. And most small farmers are leaving this money on the table. The reason planning actually works is simple. Planned breeding cycles match market demand and your personal capacity. When you breed strategically, animals reach market size when prices are highest and buyers are actively looking. You're not competing with oversupply or trying to sell when nobody's buying, and you're not overwhelmed with more animals than you can properly care for all at once. Everything flows more smoothly. Here's what makes random breeding expensive. It creates periods of overwhelming work followed by periods with nothing to sell.
Your income becomes unpredictable, which makes budgeting impossible. You miss premium pricing opportunities because your animals mature at the wrong times. And worst of all, you can't provide consistent care when you're suddenly dealing with 3 times as many animals as you planned for. Quality suffers, growth slows, and profits disappear. Think about market timing specifically. If you raise chickens and everyone else in your area has chickens ready around the same time, prices drop because of oversupply. But if you time your breeding so your chickens are ready 2 weeks before or after that glut, you face less competition and get better prices. That timing difference can mean an extra $3 to $5 per bird, which adds up fast when you're selling dozens or hundreds. The same applies to holiday demand. Turkeys command premium prices before Thanksgiving, not in January. Lamb prices peak around Easter and various cultural holidays. If you're breeding randomly, you miss these opportunities completely. But strategic breeding puts your product in buyers' hands exactly when they're willing to pay the most. To start fixing this, map out target market dates. Look at holidays, local demand patterns, and when buyers are actively looking. If you understand your market's seasonal rhythms, you're ready. What you're doing is working backward from those market dates to schedule breeding for optimal timing. Most animals have predictable gestation and growth periods, so the math is straightforward. Count backwards from your target market date, and that tells you when to breed. No optimizing, no complicated formulas. To keep it going, focus on just one thing: annual review and adjustment based on what actually worked. Every year, look at which batches sold best, which timing worked smoothly, and which created problems. Use that information to refine next year's schedule. That's enough. You're not creating rigid plans that never change. You're creating flexible strategies that improve based on real experience. Over time, this doesn't just improve your market prices and cash flow. It changes how manageable your farm feels. You're not constantly overwhelmed or sitting idle. Work flows at a sustainable pace. Income arrives predictably so you can plan family expenses and farm investments. Less chaos, more rhythm, a little more certainty in an uncertain business. And your animals get better care because you're not stretched too thin trying to manage more than you have capacity for. A small thing that makes this easier is coordinating with 2 or 3 other local farmers. Share what you're learning about market timing, and you might even find opportunities for bulk marketing that gets everyone better prices. When local farmers cooperate instead of competing, everyone usually benefits. You're not sharing proprietary secrets. You're just building community knowledge that strengthens all your farms. Mistake 7. Scaling too fast without systems. This one matters because it solves a growth trap that destroys farms. Doubling or tripling animals before your infrastructure, knowledge, or cash flow can actually support it. The result is predictable and painful. Overwhelming stress, animal losses, financial strain, and often complete burnout that makes people quit farming entirely. Scaling incorrectly is one of the fastest ways to turn a profitable small farm into a struggling operation. The reason gradual growth actually works is simple. Sustainable farming grows infrastructure, skills, and animal numbers together at the same pace. Each expansion should strengthen your foundation, not stress it. When you scale faster than your systems can handle, everything breaks down simultaneously. You don't have enough shelter, enough time, enough money, or enough experience. That's when expensive mistakes multiply and profits disappear. Here's what makes rapid scaling so tempting. More animals feels like more profit. And on paper, if 10 animals make you $5,000, then 30 animals should make you $15,000. But that math only works if everything else scales proportionally. In reality, when you triple your animals, you don't just triple your work. You exponentially increase complexity, risk, and the number of things that can go wrong. Small problems become disasters because you don't have the systems to catch them early. Think about cash flow specifically. Growing animals requires money for feed, shelter, and care for months before you see any return. If you scale too fast, you're spending thousands on 30 animals before you've sold the first 10. If anything goes wrong, market prices drop, or growth takes longer than expected, you're suddenly in a financial crisis with no cash reserves. This is how farms end up in debt, and farmers end up working second jobs to keep the farm afloat. The emotional toll is just as bad. When you're overwhelmed by more animals than you can properly care for, everything suffers. Animal welfare declines. Your family life suffers, your health suffers. And ironically, your profit margins often shrink instead of growing because you can't maintain quality care at that scale. You traded manageable profitability for chaotic struggle, and there's no easy way back. To start fixing this, master your current scale completely before expanding. If you can't manage 10 animals consistently well, you're not ready for 20. If you already have solid systems for your current numbers, you're ready for gradual growth. What you're doing is simply adding 20 to 30% capacity maximum per year. This gives you time to adjust systems, learn new skills, and build infrastructure without breaking what already works. No optimizing, no aggressive growth targets. To keep it going, focus on just one thing. Build an emergency fund equal to 3 months operating costs before expanding. That's enough buffer to handle setbacks without destroying your farm. Feed costs spike, animals get sick, markets drop, weather causes problems. All of this is normal farming reality. An emergency fund means those inevitable challenges don't become existential crises. You absorb the hit and keep operating while farms without reserves often fail. Over time, this doesn't just create sustainable, stress-free growth. It changes your entire farming experience. You're building something that lasts instead of chasing aggressive growth that often collapses. You protect your family's investment and security. You maintain quality of life while your farm grows. Less panic, more confidence, a little more certainty that this path is actually sustainable long-term. And your animals get consistent quality care instead of suffering from overwhelmed management. A small thing that makes this easier is testing new practices on small groups first. Want to try a new breed or different housing system? Start with 3 animals, not 30. This lets you learn on small, manageable mistakes instead of expensive disasters across your entire operation. Experienced farmers know that slow, tested expansion prevents catastrophic failures that end farming dreams. Bonus tip. Here's something most farmers miss, and it matters more than adding another practice or fixing another mistake. Instead of constantly doing more, focus on removing one small friction point from your daily routine. This might be the most valuable insight in this entire video because it works immediately and costs almost nothing. Most farmers think success comes from doing more things right, but often real progress comes from removing things that slow you down. Think about your daily routine. What's the one thing that creates unnecessary hassle every single day? Maybe it's hauling water from a distant source when you could install a simple extension. Maybe it's a gate that's hard to open so you avoid certain paddocks. Maybe it's feed stored inconveniently so every feeding takes extra time. These small frictions seem minor, but they compound daily. A task that takes 5 extra minutes every day costs you 30 hours per year. That's almost a full work week wasted on one inefficient system. Multiply that across several friction points and you're losing weeks of productive time annually to problems that could be fixed once and eliminated permanently. The psychology here is backwards. Adding new practices feels productive. Removing friction feels like laziness or like you're just making things easier for yourself. But efficiency isn't laziness. It's smart farming. When you eliminate friction, you free up energy and time for things that actually improve your farm instead of just maintaining the status quo. So here's your action step. Identify one daily friction point this week and fix it permanently. Doesn't matter how small it seems. Fix it. You'll be surprised how much that single change improves everything else. When daily tasks flow smoothly, you have more mental space for strategic thinking instead of just surviving each day's work. That shift is where real farm improvement happens. You don't need to change your whole farm this week. You just need one steady direction that moves you forward. Pick one mistake from today and address it this month, imperfectly. That's how real progress actually starts. Not with perfect plans, but with consistent action on problems that matter. The difference between farms that thrive and farms that struggle isn't massive investment or perfect conditions. It's usually a handful of smart decisions repeated consistently over time. Everything we covered today is actionable by any farmer regardless of scale or budget. You already have everything you need to start. And if you want more calm, practical farming advice that protects your investment and reduces stress, subscribe to Zero to Purpose. This channel is for people who want self-sufficient, sustainable farms without burnout, chaos, or constantly wondering if they're doing it right. I post videos like this every week that help you farm smarter, not harder. Thanks for spending this time here today. These ideas work, but only if you actually implement them. So pick one. Start this week. And I'll see you in the next video where we'll tackle more practical ways to make your farm more profitable and your life more manageable.